always to my left, yo, Mr. DC. Mark Foster, what's going on, yo?
DC.
Comics.
Oh, Marvel, come on.
Yeah, I know. Ain't that what the shirt say?
Oh, no. This is OG
Oh.
BC. It's a wrestling shirt. OG
Oh.
Bullet Club.
Oh, okay. Oh, man, I thought it said DC. I was like, DC Comics. Like, I thought you did that for our special guest here.
I couldn't find a good comic book shirt.
I should have rocked mine. Right.
I know I got a Deadpool somewhere, but...
I got an Iron Man and a Gambit. Yeah. I love the cards.
R.I.P. Iron Man.
Yeah. All right, y'all. Well, we back up in here. We back in the building after a Ravens L and a Dallas Cowboy L. As we can see here, got my homegirl Sophia in the building.
Hey y'all, what it do? And that's a 3-1 for the Cowboys. Calm down.
That's definitely better than our 2-2. So I can't even say shit about that. Then we also got my man, the special guest, the man of the hour in the building. We got Mr. Dr. Toonz. What it do, yo?
Salute. Everything is everything. Ready to go.
All right, yo. Thank everybody. Sophia, Donald, thank you so much for coming through.
Thank you.
Thank you for taking the time, man. Everybody, you know how we start the shows when we got the drinks on. Cheers. Let's do that. All right. Yo, first thing we're going to talk about, first things first, is the Ravens-Browns game yesterday. I was unfortunate enough to be out there at the game. Yo, Browns 40s, Ravens 25.
I saw it.
You guys, first WTF, first what the fuck moment of the night. Yo, what the hell happened out there yesterday, Mark?
Y'all lost.
You want me to be like my usual jovial joking self or like a for real analysis?
I'll take the real. Let's do the real.
I'll throw you back to the extra that I posted up yesterday.
Okay.
And there's two things that I said they needed to do, and they weren't able to do. One, set the tempo. They let the Browns set the tempo, and after that it was over. Two, run the ball. Once they were down by 2 touchdowns, they couldn't run the ball because they needed to hurry up and score.
Right.
Their run production was actually excellent. 5.9, I think, average for Ingram, who had over 70 yards. But once the running game was null and void and they had to pass, it was over.
Yeah. Yeah, you know what? You know what's so crazy? Like, a lot of people were... I mean, I was shocked and a little bit appalled. But, you know, I was thinking about last season. And I don't know if you remember, Mark. Yo, game 1 versus the Browns last season... We lost that game.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
It was an overtime game. You know what I mean? Because I will never forget, yo. I was actually in Europe at the time, and everybody was texting me, hitting me up like, yo, the Browns beat y'all, and I could not believe it. So, you know me, I'm all about the stats and everything. I actually went back and took a look at the stats for that particular game.
Yeah?
Yo, and you know what is so crazy? Baker Mayfield had the same exact stats, yo. 342 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. Both games.
And both were here.
Yeah, I believe so.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, so they basically, that tells me that the Browns basically kept the same game plan that they had the last time. The only difference between this game and the last game, anybody?
Flacco wasn't there.
No. Who, Mark? What's the difference, yo? Nick Chubb.
Oh, God.
Nick damn Chubb, yo.
You know what? I gotta catch up on everything. All I know is I was on the light race yesterday on my way to work, and everybody was packed up on the light rail, and I was hearing what was going on, but I couldn't see the game.
Yeah.
But I knew what was going on.
Man, that thing was live, yo. The dog pound was in full effect, yo. But Nick Chubb, he had 165 yards and 3 touchdowns. You know what I mean? That was the big difference maker. You know, the Ravens secondary was a little suspect. They gave up some big plays, yo, on 3rd down, you know, also. But Nick Chubb ran all over the Ravens.
Were you still at the stadium when he ran that 88-yarder?
Yeah,
when was that? That was in the I was so lit.
That was towards the 3rd, 4th quarter.
I texted you with 8 minutes left. I was like, "Are you still at the damn game?"
And I was like, "No, I left." I was, and it was getting crazy out there because the dog pound was winning, so they was getting real lit and everything, man. So it was crazy out there. It was crazy out there. So yeah, the Ravens took it out there now 2-2. Next game is up in Pittsburgh against the Steelers.
We got some trash talking in the comments already.
What's that?
Clifford Booze. Beat y'all ass.
Oh, that's a Browns fan. Is that a friend of yours?
Do you know who Cliff? We been at the softball game.
Hey, what's up, Cliff? What's going on?
There's another game. There's another game. Two divisional games every year. Come on.
Look, y'all better win. Y'all better win. Y'all better win tonight before you can even start talking about next week. Shit.
So we're gonna get into a little bit too around the league and the NFL, and a little bit later on in the show, because right now we do have a special guest in the building. We want to talk a little bit about and to Mr. Dr. Toonz right here. So once again, say what's up. Tell everybody where you from.
I'm from Baltimore. I'm from Woodmore though, from Woodlawn, Baltimore, Maryland. Grew up in Baltimore. I grew up in Baltimore County in particular, Woodlawn, but West Baltimore. My parents grew up there. And I'm an artist, Dr. Toonz.
And what is your art right now?
Well, right now I'm working on a mural project on Bangor Exeter Street in Little Italy, and that's a 50-foot mural of it's like an interpretation of an artist named Yuri who painted up a restaurant called Cafe Gia's on High Street. And what I did was I did my own version of his piece to capture what Little Italy looks like. But as far as my artwork, I have lots of murals around the city. This is the latest. I have different ones in different neighborhoods, comic books that match the murals, and I do a lot of outreach stuff in the neighborhoods. But off record, it's a lifestyle I live as an artist.
Okay. So, who is Dr. Toonz? How'd you come up with the name Dr. Toonz?
Okay, so. I'm gonna keep it Baltimore too.
All right, that's what we want, man. Shit, that's what the people tuned in for.
Okay, so, officially, the first thing I ever did Dr. Toonz on was College Bound Foundation. It was a project I did to get back into college. But see, the thing was, I had a friend named, her name. I'll talk creatively right now. We had an artistic name. She used to write Apple C. That was her graffiti name. She was from Brooklyn, New York. She was in the Bronx doing what they call hip-hop before they called it hip-hop. She was 12 years older than me and taught me so much about the culture of what they called hip-hop. But it was graffiti writing, well, not graffiti writing, it called it writing. And she passed away from cancer in 2000. But before she passed away, I was trying to create my own name. I used to write Tyson backwards, which is my last name. I used to write that in graffiti backwards when I was in high school and through college. And then I said, let me come up with the perfect name. Her name was Apple C. I liked the name Apple. And then I said, all right, let me match Apple with Doctor. Because, she had cancer. So when she was in the hospital, I would do drawings to I felt like making her laugh and stuff like that was a healing factor that could kind of get things to flow, to make her feel good while she was going through what she was going through. So I felt like I was a doctor in my own right. So I made up the name before she had a chance to really digest the name. She was overdosing off of chemotherapy and cold medicine. She passed away. I created a name. So she passed away. I'm in the house saying Dr. Toonz, Dr. Toonz. I take all the pictures I drew as I was taking myself through self-therapy, drawing pictures of us, whatever stuff I wanted to draw, based on what she taught me about hip-hop in particular, but also our life. I took all these things down to Baltimore Office of Promotion and the Arts in Baltimore, Maryland. I said, look, I'm an artist from Baltimore. Please promote me. And Randy Vega down there and a guy named Gary Cachadorian sat down and talked to me. And I think at the time I also did a book for College Bound Foundation, and that brought me into the rec centers and stuff. And Dr. Toonz, I started to carry my friend Apple on my heart, and try to use her story about the codes with hip-hop to help the youth to know that there's more of a positive message to put in. And not just with rapping, but with graffiti writing, painting, dancing, it's a lot to it. But I'm also on the visual art side of things,
Nice. Let's take it back to the youth, because you guys might not know. I mean, me and Dr. Toonz, we go way back. way back. Like, we went to grade school together way back. Like, I think we started our friendship, in 5th grade?
5th grade, yeah.
Yes.
That's it.
Yes. At the, up at John Paul Regional Catholic School.
Yep, off Dogwood Road in Woodlawn.
Yeah, and Donald was always one of the most talented gentlemen in the kids. Let me say at the time, kids.
Thank you.
In the classroom, he was always drawing, and he was really big into the comic books, the Wolverines and that shit was big with him. And so can we just talk a little bit about how you even got into drawing, like even back then? Because I mean, 10, 11 years old, your drawings were so advanced, now that I think back, you know what I mean? Like, that shit was legit. How did you start doing that?
Well, first of all, I gotta say, all right, my father drew, all right?
Okay.
And he actually told me he drew. All right, I remember he drew a mural of Winnie the Pooh on my wall in Carriage Hill Apartments. He said I copied E.T. under my crib when I was 2. I don't know, but that's what he said. It was the first time I drew. But my man James Randall, he's a mutual friend of us I grew up with. I actually knew his... See, he's like almost like a cousin to me because his mother and my mother went to school together. And when we was in kindergarten at a school called John Paul Regional Catholics... No. St. Charles.
St. Charles, yeah.
In Subbrook, we went to that school together. And he used to draw dogs. I used to draw dinosaurs. And we used to just draw, right? I was Dinosaur Donald. He was Jay-Z. He drew the dogs.
And you were freehanding this, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Both of us would draw together.
Right.
But then, I don't know. I mean, over time, I just kept doing it. My father did it, So, and one time, I remember this, right? Mm-hmm. I remember when I went to kindergarten. I think I was in, 1st grade, maybe. All right, so the teacher said she was going to hang the picture I did on the wall. And I thought I was in trouble. Because I didn't know, I'm like...
Right.
But it was a good thing to have my picture hung on the wall in front of people, And that's when I realized that, okay... Because I thought everybody could draw, really. We're all young drawers. I didn't think I had no talent or nothing, But when people said I had talent, I'm like, oh, what's... I didn't even know what talent was, really. I just did it,
It came natural.
Yeah, so a lot of the stuff in life just comes natural.
Did you ever take classes as you got older? In advance, you did start taking classes and honing your skill.
Yeah, my mother wasn't an artist. My father was the one, but my mother was the one who put me in classes. Mm-hmm. She made sure. Matter of fact, when I was in Catholic school, sometimes back then I don't think we had ADHD labels on us, but it was something like that, similar.
No, they just say you dumb. You dumb, you don't sit your ass still.
We got some comments on it too. Look, Kane Pilot, he said he's been drawing forever, like probably before we could even write cursive, and that shit is real.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, back in those days, they used to tell us something that I can't explain how they, ADHD is some kind of, if you ever look it up, ADHD, and you get your brands on your children with that, they used to describe those characteristics in us when we was growing up in the 80s. But my mother, what she did was she heard them say these type of things that sounded like ADHD. She said, no, he likes to draw. I think my doctor or whatever, at the time, they try to get you medic,
Yeah.
So you gotta see what's wrong with you. Right. But no, my mother said nothing wrong with him. He's just into art. So that's what she put me into, stuff like that.
And nurtured that.
Exactly. And so through that I had lessons, outside of my father, outside of, And then on top of that, I also wanted to learn my own things. So sometimes I would look at cartoons, draw my own stuff, self-motivation.
How did you get into doing the comic book stuff? Because that's what our beginning. I was like, this is the guy that can draw all the X-Men. Like, you know what I mean? And you would, hand out some of your drawings sometimes. You know what I mean?
Yeah, all right, so Ninja Turtles. I remember Ninja Turtles, right? That's the first comic book I ever had, right? It was Easton and Laird's Ninja Turtles, right? Laird's, I forgot how to pronounce the name, but
the old black and white version. How they originally did it.
Yeah. Hardcore. It was hardcore too, right? And so I read it, I loved it, right? And then I started drawing them first. And then also video games like Nintendo, like Mario Brothers had me drawing them. Like I used to open up. Remember back in the day, I don't know if anybody remembers this, back in when you had Nintendo, right? they used to have video game books that you get from the store. You open the game and see the maps of the whole board, right?
Yeah.
So I would draw like little maps of boards of my own little video games and make it up. So that kind of, you know, created like I don't know, like an adventure type story. But anyway, so I kind of combined it like video games with the Ninja Turtles, and then I started to draw. And then as time went on, I'm gonna tell you, hip hop was a big thing. But then my man Aaron Lemon, right? I don't know why. We went to school with Aaron.
Yes.
He used to read X-Men, and I read the X-Men book. And I'm gonna tell you, it's funny. The movies that's out now, they were actually dealing with that. The Infinity Club, the Infinity Wars movie. That comic book just came out at that time. That was the one I was reading. The X-Men and the Infinity Wars movie.
Right.
I was reading all them. And I was just drawing those comic books. But then, to be honest with you, I think what happened was, I didn't know any. This is funny. I'm gonna say this because Black Panther, and you talk about like black superheroes, or I didn't really know there was any back then, right? So I didn't even know about Black Panther. So when I showed my family the characters I made up, they said, "Where's your black superheroes?" I made them looking like X-Men, right? This is the innocence of a young child growing up, and he sees no images of people looking like him. All I knew was hip hop was superheroes to me. So I started drawing my people that look like brothers I grew up with, that I looked up to, that told me to keep drawing and stay out of trouble.
Right.
So I made up a little cat. So this is when I left John Paul and went to Milford Mill, and I created a book. Listening to Tupac Shakur, he said, "Never ignorant, getting goals accomplished." I created a book called Agginville.
Okay.
Aggin, and I took all my friends and different people in Milford Mill, because coming from Catholic school, right, going to high school, and at the time it was lots of, let's say, I don't know if you remember, but in the 90s there was a lot of the projects in the city of Baltimore were being imploded and destroyed, and a lot of people from those projects were being moved out to the county. It was overcrowded. Milford Mill Academy was so overcrowded. We didn't have, like, we would have like 50 people in the classroom, like people didn't even know. It would be like 10 extra people on a roll call. They didn't know what class they were supposed to go in. So we was going from classroom to classroom. I'm drawing, you know what I mean? And I'm not trying to be bullied by the older ones, you know what I'm saying? So I'm drawing like all the characters and brothers looking at my pictures and loving that. But I took all the different rap stereotypes and personas and different characters, and I just created a book called Agginville, and people kept saying, "Put me in the book" and stuff like that. And I had a book where people in Milford that was in the book passed this book around, and I got it to my art teacher named Valerie Waldman, who was the daughter of Gene Colan. And I don't know if am I talking too much?
Good, no, man. This the interview, baby.
Okay. So, all right, so Miss Valerie Waldman, and you know what I gotta say, rest in peace, I think, because this is the sad part about it. I seen her, I was gonna reach out to her, and there's an obituary online, but rest in peace to Valerie Waldman. Her father, Gene Colan, used to draw for Marvel Comics and DC Comics, and in particular, the epic version of Black Panther comic book called Panther's Quest. If you Google that, you can see that. At the time, Miss Waldman wasn't really close to her father, and I met Gene Colan a little later. He explained to me how hard it is for a comic book artist to really stay in touch with his family. So when I was at Milford Mill drawing my Agginville comic book, Miss Waldman saw it. She said, "Look, you got an A from sophomore year to senior year. Don't worry about it." Right? And I just would come into our classroom and just draw. And then she would teach me things. She would expose me to different. She helped me get a museum exhibit at Walter's Art Gallery. No, Baltimore Museum of Art. And
all right, cool. Well, look, we're going to take a quick break, about a 2-minute break, and when we come back, we're going to kind of slide towards the present and talk about, some music. We talked a little bit about, you mentioned Public Enemy, and we'll talk about how that, has influenced your art as well, and we'll also talk about what's going on with you right now. So don't go anywhere, you guys. Just a bit outside. We'll be right back. All right, you guys, welcome back. Thanks for sticking around. I believe people are really loving the show for real because I believe we got some comments.
Oh yeah.
Mark, you wanna get into the questions and the comment we got there?
Jennifer Holbrook, love this. So often a child that is creative is misunderstood or stifled. Props to all following their dreams and to the people that support them. And I can't say enough, like, you know, my stepson, he's like 14 now, but from the time he was like 2, he was drawing just like you. And, like, you see that progression as he gets older, it's just amazing. And definitely, like, you know, gotta tell him, keep on doing it.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, I think the art industry itself is kind of dying because a lot of, you know, they're taking out music and art in schools and things like that. And that's how a lot of kids express themselves. You know, a lot of kids, like you said before, they may classify them as ADHD. That's just their artistic, you know, I can't sit still because my mind, I'm thinking of this. You're talking this and I'm seeing this, you know.
Right.
Let them express themselves. A lot of these kids, you know, that's why a lot of them have issues because they're being stifled by the public school system.
Right.
Absolutely. You know, when we left off, we were talking about how the comics and how things influenced your art early on in life. And I kind of want to, you know, fast forward a little bit to, you know, high schools and say like your early 20s, you know. And honestly, I mean, even when we was in like 7th grade, for real. I mean, you were big in the Public Enemy back then.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Back when we were in middle school. But has music played a major part in your art and in your expression? Because I mean, honestly, like when I see a lot of your stuff around town, you know, one of my favorites is Underneath the Bridge. There's a woman. She has a hat on. She's black. I think she might be pushing a wheelbarrow.
She has a farmer's suit on.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And a couple people, you know, have seen that, and they're like, "Yo, that looks like your mom." I'm like, you know, I'm pretty sure my mom was an inspiration for this painting, but you know, I always loved how you like to capture, you know, black people, and you know, I've always, you know, think back to, you know, how, you know, militant and Public Enemy, like you was really down with it. You know what I mean? So, you know, how much did that play a factor into how your art changed from, you know, like your adolescence to
everything? Like I gotta say this. Maybe you can laugh with me when I say this, right? Because we went to Catholic school, right? Yeah. And you know, you go to Catholic school, you learn about angel, you know, you learn about heaven and stuff like that, right? So, but when I was in school, when I was growing up, remember the Earth, Wind, and Fire covers with the pyramids on it? And the Earth, Wind, and Fire, they had afros, they would have clothes, they look angelic to me.
Yeah.
So I thought I already knew what the heaven looked like, for real. So when I went to Catholic school and I saw that, I said, all right, well, they're trying to tell me something, but it don't quite match the heaven I already know. Because when I was little, I used to look at the album covers, right? And study the Funkadelic album covers, study the Earth, Wind, and Fire album covers, the OJs, listen to the music, and look at how the pictures matched the music. And the art on those covers was so out of this world, right? And the videos, it was not that many videos back then, but if you ever looked at a few videos, they were so high vibrational with the afros and so spiritual.
Right.
And my father, he was talking out of this world anyway. He used to always talk about the spiritual journey and this Cherokee, whatever, you know, Blackfoot Cherokee history. So as he's talking all that, I'm listening to Earth, Wind, and Fire, hearing the high vibrational music. It's telling me that I have to do something with my art that expresses what music is trying to say. So everything I would hear as far as hip hop was, especially when they talked about graffiti, I started to be able to see sound. I would say that's what I would say, because I would I would hear the music and see the colors and then interpret the slang, and that's why that's everything. Like in the 20s, when I met my friend Apple C. Like I said, she was from Brooklyn, but she was in Bronx doing what they call hip hop before they called it hip hop. And she would tell me so many stories about what they was doing. Like when I say before they called it hip hop, you're talking about just what they call revolutionary rap. And if you listen, if you know about Public Enemy, they were a very revolutionary group. It was all about power to the people. That means all people, okay? But they had a pro-black perspective from the perspective of trying to give us our own voice to speak. You know what I mean? A lot of during those times, we didn't have our own platform to tell our story. You know, we were a public enemy at that time. You know, the public looked at what you would call black as, you know, something criminal in a sense. That's why NWA would have, you know, that niggas with attitude thing, because a lot of times you would look on cops and see the bad boys. You would see the guy with no shirt running down the street, you know, like, you know, but you never heard his story. So rap gives you a story that makes you not just stereotype us as the criminal, but let us know the things we went through. And Public Enemy, Revolutionary Apple was telling me lots of stuff that you don't really hear in the music, but it goes all the way back to what they call, if you look in history about how they say that the slaves would hide codes in the music, Negro spirituals. It translates all the way through rock and roll, through bebop, through funk, through hip hop. And I kind of felt like I was going to put it in a comic book. So when my friend Apple passed away, well, before she passed away, I was always saying, look, let's create a story that could kind of bridge the gap where the older generation could put this information for the younger generation to get. So she wrote the word us, space, then Utes. I don't know what it meant, but it just, like I said, US, space, YOUTZ. I wrapped it around this comic book for this, just to throw back a classic, you know, cover that reminds me of what she wrote. But if you look at the book that I made, I made a book called The Legend of the Blackface Joker. You know, inspired. It, really, be honest with you, Flavor Flav inspired it. He was the Joker. You know, playing the Dozens inspires it. You know, Professor Griff inspires it. I did a lot of. I used to move. I did a lot of things with a lot of brothers over the years. You know, I was honored to be in the presence of a lot of different ones and work with different ones after Apple passed away. I don't want to ramble too much. But
no, you're good. You're doing good. So how did this lead to teaching and projects and working with rec centers around Baltimore?
Okay, so when Apple passed away from cancer, like I said, I was drawing. I guess I would say self-therapy, like going through what then I took the work down to Baltimore Office of Promotion of the Arts. Oh, John Erickson. I worked at Charlestown Retirement Community, and John Erickson, who owned Charlestown Retirement Community, you know, he actually became a good friend of mine because I did a project. You know, if anybody ever worked at Charlestown Retirement Community or any of the retirement communities that John Erickson owns, if you work there or work over 1,000 hours, what you can get is a scholarship of $1,000 every year that you go to school for 4 years. So you like $4,000, $1,000 applied every year that you go to a 4-year school. So I was like 8 hours away from it. I worked like 990 some hours officially in the kitchen under Charlestown. But before I worked at Charlestown, I did an illustration for John Erickson, to advertise for a retirement center in Detroit called Henry Ford Village, which pretty much benefited the company, right? So my mother wrote a letter to John Erickson. He said, yeah, he definitely helped benefit our company for more than 1,000 hours. But not only that, he took me out of the kitchen and brought me to the television station so I could work at Channel 6. I was the first intern, I think. There was no other intern. There was no intern position there. Now it's interns that go there and intern at Channel 6 at Charlestown or different retirement centers he owns. Before that, I think he actually created that for me. And I went there and I learned television stuff. And after working with John Erickson, and to tell you, to tie him to, me and Apple. I told you her name, Jody. Apple. Me and Apple both worked at Charlestown together. And while she was going through her, cancer, John Erickson, he knew about it and he assisted us well. When she passed away, he knew about it and helped me get back into school. He helped me. since I went to Milford Mill, went to county schools. He had a friend named Craig Spillman who worked for the College Bound Foundation to help city school children. Since I went to a county school, I couldn't get the benefits of their College Bound Foundation program. But since I was an artist, I drew a book called Produce Kids for the College Bound Foundation, and that's how they paid me to get to Towson University, where I wrote about my friend Apple and how she passed away from cancer. Failed all my classes except for my memoir writing class, right? Writing about her. And from there, took that stuff down to Bopa, right? Mm-hmm. Talked to Randy Vega. Told her I need to get, find something to do constructive. She brought me to the Easterwood Rec Center.
Okay.
And that's when I first went there and started to find a way to, how can I say, translate what Apple was telling me through different programs, through just talking to the youth at first, until eventually I created something what they call a chain story, where I actually would tell, I had a systematic program that I actually used to bring the youth from, how can I say this? You have a level of hip hop that is pop culture knows about, and then you have a level of hip hop that the revolutionary side of things explains. But if you don't understand that, then you won't know the two sides and how they work together.
Say the same thing with art.
Right. So I use the art to be a translator medium to help to get the children to be symbol literate. That's what my Dr. Toonz lab classes were, over time. Once I realized how the youth think, different, as I got older, started seeing how different trends were coming into play, different history was repeating itself. We were getting a little older. I said, all right, let me create systems. So I go to rec centers. Went from doing programs through Bopa. I mean, I don't know how hardcore you can get, but after a while I lost funding, and I would just go to these rec centers by myself and do programs with no funding. I would do murals. I was working in a mural program, but I would be living in different hoods, going to the rec centers, doing programs with rec centers, not getting funded with that, getting people to write stories around the murals, talk about their life being on drugs. There's so many adventures I could explain in these neighborhoods with murals and rec
got
centers.
another comment that kind of relates to what you were just saying, and this is from Shannon. She says, art is a general topic that I think can be shared amongst us as our blueprints to show our next generation our dreams, hopes, and aspirations. I think that's a beautiful thing. So, you're doing the comic books. You're out there pushing the comic books. You're out there, working with the youth and everything. So now you're doing the mural projects. How did you make your way down from the rec center to Little Italy? And and this is really how we kind of reconnected, for real.
So okay, I'm working in the rec centers, and like I said, after the rec center, I think the artist in residency program lost funding or something, or switched funding over. So I was still doing the residence, doing my own, going to different rec centers and stuff. But I did a mural at a school in Pigtown.
Okay.
With the students in there. That was one of the residencies I did. Usually I don't do murals in schools. I do another project. But this time they wanted a mural specifically. That's how I met the mural program director through Bopa named Sean James.
Okay. And
he introduced me to Michael Kirby. And Michael Kirby is a great artist from Baltimore who did a lot of murals. He was on the news and stuff. I saw him before. So when I worked with him, I apprenticed with him for a few years. And he actually invited me to go to Gloucester, Virginia to do a mural program. To do a mural based on the story of Pocahontas. We actually were the last two people to walk on what they call sacred ground. Meaning that's where the story of Pocahontas took place, in Gloucester, Virginia, where John Smith was brought in on the boat.
Nice.
Met Chief Powhatan. We walked on it. They found arrowheads on the land and found that was the land. So we had to, but when I was down there, my father told me stories about us here, and a lot of the pictures didn't match the stories, that we found, that we hear about in his story. I say history, but I like to say his story, because I like to break the words down, Our story from our perspective, was quite different than what my friend Michael Kirby was painting, So I said, look, I'm going to go ahead and leave the job and do my own. And then I went down to Baltimore, Office of Promotion of the Arts. I got the job to do Pennsylvania Avenue mural, to talk about, there was a guy named Alvin K. Brunson who used to talk about the history of Pennsylvania Avenue. Mm-hmm. He used to push this traveling museum up and down Pennsylvania Avenue to share the history of what was happening in the early 20s and 30s and 40s when, during segregation times, during the times you would see the blacks only and whites only, and during that era where it was certain artists that was trying to perform, and they had the Chitlin Circuit. If you ever you can Google the Chitlin Circuit. Yeah. Pennsylvania Avenue was one of the major, I think it was the first place for black musicians to play, and you had to win over the Royal Theater in order to get on the Chitlin Circuit. Okay, and just Google to make sure. But this was what the mural was based on. Alvin K. Brunson, he passed away because a building collapsed on him, and I had to draw, a story of a picture of him and the images of Pennsylvania Avenue's history. So you see Billie Holiday on a mural, Al Brown from a group called Al Brown and the Toonz Toppers. It's some history there. That's on Pennsylvania Avenue. That's how I started, and I was on the news from that. Got harassed on the neighborhood because of that. I was on the news. See, this is what ties into other murals. Why, being an artist sometimes and living through the struggles trying to make it, you got to face everyday city stuff too. Police coming up on me, stereotyping me. It happened when I was on Pennsylvania Avenue. I had to deal with that. That influenced the next mural. I had to now I go to every mural set. I go to every policeman, let them know who I am. Then communicate with the streets. So I want to make sure I stay on track with your question.
Yeah, no,
but
you good.
This goes into how I get into the murals. But what happens is, every time I go to, let me say this. When I did the Pennsylvania Avenue mural, I learned a lot, because that mural, we actually, I met somebody named Grandma Edna, who does storytelling. And she, from Brown Fish, this group called Brown Fish. They used to be out back in the day. My brother, he came out.
We had Jahidi on the show before. Shout him out, man.
Yeah, rest in peace to Yeah. Salute to Jahidi. B Fly. I used to work with B Fly at Framing Place and on Liberty Road in Milford. She came out and performed. And they had a street party there, and something at Shake and Bake for my mural. Linda Richardson, shout out to her. She saved the day for the whole mural project. And when I looked at how a mural could do something in the community, I said, okay, I want to really do this again in another. I wanted to keep going to unfortunate communities, not ones that with a lot of support. So the next one was Homestead and Polk Street. And when I went there, I started to say, okay, let me see how I could speak to this neighborhood. So I spoke to the neighborhood in my own ways, where I put knowledge that I had through what Apple taught me about hip-hop and also our own history, and I put it on the wall and did a comic book, called Hood Instructions at the same time. And these books, Hood Instructions, used to be something I would sell or pass around the neighborhoods doing these murals. So, this leads up again to this. I don't know if we're going too forward, but
no, it's all good.
The book I'm working on now kind of brings together the whole story. And
so, what are these hood instructions? You talking about the hood instructions and whatnot. So, I guess kind of, if somebody was to pick up or, to see you in the street and be like, yo, I want to get a comic book, or, what is this all about? Like, what are the hood instructions?
So, okay, hood instructions, all right, it started like this. It was a time period where I was struggling, doing this art thing, wasn't making a lot of money. But everywhere I would go, and I would be going up and down the East Coast, Greyhounds. I would go to, I went to school in Florida, so I would go up and down the East. So I would go to North Carolina, stay with my sister Martone. That's how I worked with Professor Griffin. Met Professor Griffin, different ones for Public Enemy. I would go to Philly with brother named Abdullah Bey, ties to Tariq Bey. Would study Moorish science up there. I would go to New York and go to the old stomping grounds where my friend Apple was at. But then every time I would come back to Baltimore, I would always end up taking this information, putting it into these books, and then hold up, so I don't lose my thought. What was you asking?
The hood instructions.
The hood instructions. All right, so I took all those experiences up and down the East Coast and put it in, I say high hood instructions, right? And what these were, first of all, it's just basically saying, look, telling the young men to pull their pants up, you know, and start with basic stuff. Like, a dog is a bitch, basically. A kid is a goat. I started taking slang, like, for example, never, like, nigga, never ignorant, getting goals accomplished. That's something that Tupac said. Ice Cube spelled it. NWA said, niggas with attitude. You know, there's more to what we call slang. I wanted to put it in. All right, hip-hop, for example. If you stand in your b-boy stance, it's right arm over left. You stand in your truth or square. That's a lot of people don't know that. I had to explain these different things. It helps us to really pay attention to the small details of things that you may ask yourself, why is the sky blue? Why is water wet? Why do we call our children kids? Maybe I didn't answer how the sky was blue or how it was water wet, but you can actually tell that a child is, if you look at the dictionary, it says a kid is a goat, you know. Mm-hmm. So I started thinking about what is cursing. Is shit a curse word versus kid? I mean, I'm calling my child a goat. So I started looking at words and playing with that. And the more I started to play with that, I started to say, oh, wow. I saw a term called social engineering, and I said, wow, wait a minute. Social engineering is when you could actually say something to somebody and there's another definition behind the popular definition, but people are actually acting on the true definition behind the scenes, but not knowing it. Mm-hmm. There's an appetite, you know, that art, colors, flavors can stimulate. And so that really is what Hood Instructions was doing. Hood Instructions was just showing maybe a boy with his pants hanging down, but he had a black face on. He had a black face like a minstrel show character. Mm-hmm. And the book was explaining how that you have a nigga that was created by a mainstream popular audience that at that time when nigga was, first of all, the first form of American entertainment was the minstrel show. If you do your Google, you can look at it. Okay. That's blackface, you know. Mm-hmm. And so now in the popular culture where you see young, and I don't like to say African American, that's another whole story right there, you know, because I'll say America, and if you common sense, America is the whole Western Hemisphere, the planet Earth. You look at it like North America is right there, South America is right there. What is it? The whole Western Hemisphere, the planet Earth is America. That's real. It's just something to look at. So when I looked at what it meant to be African American, I said to myself, well, there was already people here. My father told me the story about us here. You know, so when I started to talk about this Hood Instruction story, and I started to look at nigga, and I started to see that, okay, the everyday family that was over here was broken down into minstrel characters. And now I see in the future, quote unquote, now we're in the 2000s, you have this younger generation that is playing into stereotypes that pretty much was already laid out in the 20s and the 10, you know, they've been saying wenches and bitches and, you know, different stuff like that. You know, the brute, a brute is a male dog, like a female dog is a bitch. They would actually call slaves brutes on the plantations. But you don't hear nobody saying brute today, but you hear bitch. Mm-hmm. So that's what Hood Instructions
That's a whole nother conversation too.
Yeah, that's what Hood Instructions. And on top of that, I like the fact you're talking about sports because, see, now we get into the game of rap.
Right.
So you had the revolutionary side. You hear people talk about the game, the hustle. But
wait a minute, hold that thought though, because you about to go into something else. We're going to take one more quick break, you guys. When we come back, we're going to talk about the game, and we're going to wrap this thing up. And then we also, before we get too deep in the game, we're going to have everybody pick their Monday Night Football scores because we got a battle of 2 0 teams. Steelers and the Cincinnati Bengals. Neither one of these motherfuckers have won a game yet. So somebody gotta
win tonight.
We're gonna let y'all know who when we come back on Just a Bit Outside. Y'all don't go nowhere. Okay, you guys, thanks for sticking around. Thank you so much. As you can see, we are back. I still got my man Mark in here. I still got my man Dr. Toonz. I still got my homegirl repping that blue, representing them boys. Hold up. Sophia in the building. Yo, so when we left off talking about Dr. Toonz, man, we've been talking about art. We've been talking about music. We've been talking about comics. And you just started to go in talking about the game. And you were saying, you know, like this is a sports show. And I kind of wanted you to continue along with that.
Well, I was thinking about, you know, the game of, I was tying in the hip-hop. Mm-hmm. You know, if you listen to music, a lot of times they talk about the game, you know. Like there's a rapper named Game, you know, salute. So when you're looking at something that has culture intertwined, a subculture, where you have graffiti, breakdancing, or DJing as the core elements of what they call hip-hop, and now, you know, it expands to another generation in a different format. You have a game where all these little things are taking place with these different characters. We all can express ourselves as characters. Now, the game is with the finance, though. You know what I mean? Because people are making money, throwing the money around, you know, trying to win the popularity contest. But in the popularity contest, you have to deal with exploitation. You know, so there's a little bit of this where me as an artist, I try to balance that, what we exploit with the story that we're really trying to tell. Like, you know, I mean, we might talk about the struggle and things we've been through, but if it doesn't benefit us to tell the if we're only explaining this shit to glorify the dumbness, and it's allowing the children to be misled, we're defeating the purpose of what this thing was that we call hip hop. And we already knew that because we were supposed to use that to bring people together, you know. So that's what I mean as far as the game, like straightening out the game. There's rules to the game. First of all, this whole thing is rooted in revolutionary rap, not as far as like trying to take over anything, but allow us, see, us having our own voice is us to overcoming something in ourselves that we didn't really have the opportunity to express in our own natural state on this planet. Like, there was a time period we couldn't even say anything. So it seems like hip-hop is being aggressive, you know, to try to say something that is challenging to the status quo, you know, but really it's not. It's just a voice that was suppressed trying to speak. You know what I'm saying? So in that, when we, as a people who's trying to speak, is tell this narrative that unites us all, we don't want to pass that point and start to party our asses into some kind of dumbass exploitation where now we so fucked up, high and drunk and stupid, right? That our children get lost in the whole path that we set this up for.
Right.
So that's what the hood instructions was. That's what the game is. I'm just trying to make sure that the game doesn't get lost. You know, we don't get lost in what we playing this.
That's what's up. So, what do you? Let's talk about now the present. You know what I mean? What are you doing like right now? Like we said, we talked about the mural in Little Italy, across what street is that? That's like Exeter and
Exeter
and Eastern Avenue, pretty much.
Yep, right down the street from where we used to bump into each other at.
Yeah, do you have any other murals that you're working on right now?
Yeah, on Bank and Exeter Street in Little Italy, across the street from Little Italy parking garage, you can look up on the roof of this building and see a picture of, matter of fact, I don't know if you can see, I'll show the camera, I don't know. But it's buildings. And these buildings are done in the style of an artist named Yuri, Y-U-R-I. He passed away. This artist used to paint he painted a lot of the images in a restaurant called Cafe Gia's on High Street, 410 South High Street. And Giovanna, she got me to take one of his pictures and copy this image in my own way on the wall on Bank and Exeter Street. So that's what I'm working on. I just finished it 2 days ago. We're still taking pictures, and I think on the what is it, the 8th? I gotta be sure. I'll let you all know the date on the event. If there's an event that takes place as far as the unveiling and there's news articles and stuff, I'll let you know. But that's what we're working on now.
Okay. All right. Now, for any fans that you just got tonight, and for people who do know you, I mean, how can people follow you on social media? How can new fans stalk you and follow your every move and everything you got going on?
Okay, you can Google DOCTA space TOONZ, see what you find. Stuff will pop up. But that's also my Facebook. And
you got Instagram?
Instagram, Toonz, DOCTOONZ. And it's a couple of them. I'm sorry, y'all. I need to delete the ones that don't work anymore. I'm trying to get used to this.
All right, well, look.
Hit them all up, and I'll respond to the ones.
You'll say use the Google. That shit is legit. All right, really, we're going to wrap this interview up really quickly with the Just a Bit Outside Fave 5. And we give our guests a topic, and they give us you give us the Fave 5 on the topic. So we talked about music and everything. And give me your you listen to music when you paint murals and whatnot?
All the time, yes.
All right. Well, what 5 musical artists do you have in rotation right now while you out there painting and doing your thing?
They're not popular.
We don't give a damn. We want them.
Sean Price.
Okay. Sean Price. You said Sean Price isn't popular.
Oh, he's popular, yeah, but some of them they not. He's not. All right, Sean Price.
Keep that shit 100. Come on, man. Don't commercialize this.
Earth, Wind and Fire. I listen to them because I want to. Who else?
He said because I want to.
Wu-Tang is on because Hulu. They showing the Old Dirty Bastard. I listen to him right now.
2 more.
Rock Marciano.
Okay.
All right, he's popular nowadays. And be honest with you, Sadat X, because I worked with Sadat X and I stayed up with Sadat X.
That's what's up.
From Brand New Beat.
Hey man, that's a good one. That's a good one. Yeah. Okay, I appreciate that. All right, you guys, outsiders, we're gonna get just a bit inside. We're gonna get back on that football field tonight. It's Monday Night Football game. It's a game going on right now. But really quickly, we're gonna talk about the battle of 2 Owens. Yes. 2 0-3 teams. They both in the AFC North. We and Baltimore know them very well. We are talking about the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Cincinnati Bengals. Yo, we got Andy Dalton. He's still QBing for Cincinnati. Then they got some new guy. They're in Pittsburgh. I don't even know this guy's name. What's his name? Mad Dog, Mad Bum. I don't give a damn. But you know, because he's down with the enemy, so I'm not even gonna try to acknowledge that. So, Sophia, who do you think is going to take tonight's game? What's your take? And if you want to, give a score, man.
I think the Steelers are going to win, and the score is going to be I want to say like 21-13.
21-13. Damn.
More than one touchdown?
Yeah. Okay. All right, Mark. What's up?
Touchdown. Definitely more than one touchdown. They overdue. They got to make up for the last 3.
I'm going to stick with my pick on our Pick'em League, which everyone, we're on ESPN. Join our Pick'em League. I sucked this week. I got like 4 right. This is a terrible week.
Yeah.
So I'm going to stick with my pick for tonight. I went Steelers 16-13.
You went with the Steelers too?
Yeah.
Oh.
Like, Jay's a big Bengals fan, and Bengals are hot trash.
Man, well, Jay, I believe in the Cincinnati Bengals.
They're giving the Dolphins a run for their money. Come on.
I don't got them. I don't know.
Really?
Yeah, I guess. Do you think they're tanking?
I don't think they're tanking on purpose. They're just bad.
Fuck that. They're gonna beat the Steelers today.
On purpose. They want to.
They gonna beat the Steelers today. No,
Oh,
I'm going with it. They are beating the Steelers today, and I am going.
Study long, study wrong.
Right. God damn. I'm gonna go 27-24. Bengals. There we go. Because I think it's gonna be a whole lot of offense. Because both defenses are straight garbage.
I think Steelers got this tonight.
All right, Donald,
they're not
you
going
want to
all
pick up?
four.
I know you're not really a big football guy. You're the boxing guy.
Yeah, I like boxing better. I mean, but you know what? I stay up. This is what I do. I kind of just watch all the players first, all the games, right?
Yeah.
Try to see what's happening, and then after a while I jump in. But I'm always on the Ravens side though, because I'm Baltimore. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I don't know.
So then shit, you gonna go with me. He's going with the Bengals, y'all. He's going with the Bengals.
The game's going on right now. First quarter's coming to an end. About 3 minutes left. Yeah. Bengals are up 3-0. Just punted.
That doesn't
I'm on my way. Well, listen, you guys. Thank you so much for tuning in tonight. We about to get out here and finish drinking them beers. Sophia, yo, wait, hold on, Sophia. What your Cowboys got to do to get back on the right track next week?
Man, first of all, we gonna win. That gonna throw the ball in front of the players and not behind them. And
hold up, because Teddy Bridgewater,
he was
terrible last night.
Right. Yeah.
Teddy Shitwater.
Our defense, I mean, we were slipping. We did play a better team than the first 3 weeks. I give the Saints that much, but Dak was fucking up last night.
He threw like 500 yards offense and still lost.
Yeah.
Somebody said talk about our favorite quarterback, Joe Flacco. There is nothing to talk about Joe Flacco.
No,
completely dropped. They dropped that game.
Who
did they play again?
The defense.
Jacksonville. Jacksonville. Oh my god.
Again on a last-second field goal.
But Minchie is
Same
good.
Joe Flacco though,
Minchie.
throwing interceptions, throwing picks, getting
Minchie's
chicks and
good.
throwing picks, baby.
Minchie's good. I'm gonna be keeping an eye on them. Jacksonville was looking pretty good. Well, then again, they were playing Denver.
Right. So look, you guys, we'll be back in 2 weeks. With what? What's up?
You ain't gonna do Booty Huff or anything?
Oh, you wanna do some Booty Huff?
Did you pick them or?
Yeah, we can do it.
Okay, let's do it.
Let's do that
time.
shit real fast. All right, cool. Who you got? Booty Huff.
Booty Huff. Vontez Perfect. Did you hear the news today?
Oh yeah,
he's out for the year. Suspended.
How does he keep coming back?
What happened? What did he do? Wait a minute. What did he do?
He did a helmet-to-helmet, intentional.
Oh.
Yeah, it's his 13th suspension in his 7 years of playing.
He's suspended for the rest of the year.
Third for an intentional injury or intentional.
Perfect.
Yeah, rough.
Yeah.
He said, "What's Booty Huff?" So, really quickly, we be having these Booty Huff and come through picks. So, Booty Huff is like, somebody that's fucked up or was playing like trash. Somebody that's garbage.
Yeah.
Do I have a Booty Huff? I got a Booty Huff pick. Mark, what was the Thursday night game?
Oh God.
That shit was straight Booty Huff.
Eagles and daggone
Packers.
Yes.
That shit was straight Booty Huff. The Green Bay, Green Bay.
Yeah,
that shit was crazy.
I lost money on that one.
Did you?
Yeah.
You must have taken Easy Money's advice.
Yeah.
Did you see the Eagles fans in Green Bay with the Philadelphia cream cheese hats?
No.
Yeah. They were doing it up.
Dang, man, I'm gonna watch the game. I'm gonna start staying up with the games now.
Who'd you come through pick of the week?
Oh, in honor of Sophia, the New Orleans Saints.
Oh. Get my beer back. Even a drink.
You lost Drew Brees. You got Teddy Bridgewater just playing like garbage, and you can still only score 10 points.
Yeah.
Cowboys did not look good.
It was bad. I admit it was bad. I call a spade a spade. We did not play good.
What's up?
As quiet as I am, and then you see, I told you boxing.
Yeah.
I do watch football though. Of all sports, I stay on football. I'm just quiet now because I'm never paying attention in the beginning. I always get into the middle of the season.
Yeah.
More, so
okay. If we had a little bit more time, we would have.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
But really quickly, we're going. So that was your come through, New Orleans Saints. My come through is a little bit different. My come through is Las Vegas sports betting. The sports betting in general. I'm gonna say Las Vegas. I think week 3 they lost some like $10 billion. It was some monumental numbers just because every last fucking underdog under the sun came through. And I saw like if you took like an 18 parlay and just picked the 8 underdogs that won last week and put $100 on it, that shit paid out $508,000.
Really? Oh man!
But Vegas, Vegas and the sports bet anytime they take an L, yo, they're gonna double up. So what did they do? They doubled up this week. They won $20 billion this week. Ooh. Yeah, you know what I'm saying? So they were the ones that came through. They took an L on the pockets last week and made a rebound in a major way this weekend. So I'm gonna have to say Vegas would to come through on the pockets show. We got anything else for tonight? Feel goods? Anything like that?
Actually, I did want to say something.
Sure.
And it kind of goes hand in hand with what you were saying about your friend Apple, cancer awareness. Yeah. I have a little pin right here. I'll probably put a picture or something. I want to thank my friend Becky for helping me make these. As we know, October starts tomorrow. It's Breast Cancer Awareness Month. Yeah. And unfortunately, a coworker of mine has been diagnosed with breast cancer, and she started chemo last week. And me and my friend made these for everyone in my department. Every day throughout the month of October, we're going to be wearing an item of pink every single day.
Fantastic.
To support our teammate and our team member. And it doesn't have to be breast cancer. It's any kind of cancer awareness. Give what you can, do whatever you can for awareness, and keep those people in your prayers.
Oh, can I add something too?
Yeah,
sure.
As far as breast cancer is concerned, I mean, I don't know if you remember, I said a lot, but Valerie Waltman, my art teacher, during the time that my friend Apple had leukemia, my art teacher Valerie Waltman was dealing with breast cancer.
Okay.
So I had to go to the hospital and visit both of them. So when you pull that up and you showed me that ribbon, I actually remember going to the cancer walks with Apple and Miss Waldman, for the breast cancer in particular. So, yeah.
That's what's up. Hey, Baltimore, stay up. You know how we end the show. Baltimore spread love, yo. We'll be back in 2 weeks with more guests and more great stories. Donald, man, I appreciate you coming through.
Thank you, Keisha. Thank you so much.
Showing your story, man.
Out. Thank you.
Yo, loved it. Sophia, thank you for coming through and sharing your love and light and laughter. And we about to get it in offline because the party don't stop here just a bit outside. But like I said, we'll see y'all next week. Thank you so much for tuning in. And y'all have a great week, man.